Chairman, Deputies and Senators, thank you very much for the invitation to meet with you today to brief you on the work of Dóchas and the role of the EU and EU funding in international development. Over the past few years, humanitarian needs and extreme poverty have escalated worldwide. A convergence of multiple crises, including rising inequality, escalating conflicts and the intensifying impact of climate change, combined with the volatile international political situation, have further exacerbated dire situations with millions at risk of starvation and death by preventable disease. Today, more than 300 million people are in need of humanitarian assistance and protection, and a record of more than 120 million people are displaced. This escalation of human suffering and need has been met with a retreat of support, with many global donors announcing cuts to their overseas development assistance. The US dealt a severe blow at the start of 2025 with the dismantling of USAID. This came on top of 14 out of the top 20 humanitarian donors cutting their aid in 2024 and resulted in the loss of $61 billion in development and humanitarian assistance. Sadly, other countries are following suit, with the OECD predicting a net decrease of up to 17% in global ODA on top of the 9% drop witnessed in 2024. The impact of these cuts is beginning to reveal itself, and a recent report by The Lancet estimates that 14 million avoidable deaths are likely as a result of US aid cuts by 2030. The figures are truly staggering. Today, we'll focus on the trends and risks that development and humanitarian organisations see in the European Union's strategy and policy development. This is particularly timely as the EU seeks to commence negotiations on the next multiannual financial framework, with the Commission's proposal being released as we speak. The EU, as the largest global donor, has a critical role to play in ensuring that its ODA remains a powerful tool for poverty reduction, sustainable development and addressing global inequalities. These objectives are clearly stated in the Lisbon Treaty, which is legally and further backed up in the EU Consensus on Development, the EU Consensus on Humanitarian Aid, and in the Global Instrument, Global Europe Indici Instrument. However, when it comes to the EU external action, there has been a considerable shift in the direction of EU policies affecting development programmes, including funding cuts to existing programmes, and a move towards a more transactional approach, which we find extremely concerning. The current MFF framework leaves humanitarian assistance perpetually stretched thin. The looming threat that all DG budgets will be cut to allow a greater allocation to EU defence spending is an obvious and growing point of concern for the development and humanitarian community. Aid budgets are needed now more than ever and need to be protected. Under the next MFF, Member States must safeguard international cooperation instruments that are working well, and any refinements should ensure that the EU's aid remains focused on addressing poverty reduction and inequalities. Human development, including investment in health, education, nutrition and social protection, must stay at the heart of EU cooperation. The EU must prioritise people, ensuring that life-saving assistance, guided by the principles of humanity, impartiality, neutrality and independence, remains paramount. And the next MFF must significantly increase funding for humanitarian assistance and safeguard the integrity of the EU's humanitarian response. The new MFF and future EU external financing instruments must offer the legal framework and strategic tools to advance sustainable development, human rights and climate action. These instruments should also ensure alignment with the EU's commitment to transparency, accountability and inclusive partnerships. In this rapidly changing environment, Ireland has remained steadfast, maintaining a principled stance underpinned by our values of peace and a commitment to principled humanitarian aid, equality and justice. The role of development cooperation and humanitarian assistance as an expression of Ireland's values and solidarity on the global stage has never been more important. In the context of increasing inequalities and human development needs, we call on the EU institutions and all Member States, including Ireland, to work towards meeting the 0.7% GNI target for ODA. We strongly believe that our values must be matched by our commitments and our ability to deliver them. And we take this opportunity to ask that Ireland leads by example and upholds our commitment to increase ODA in Budget 26 as outlined in the programme for government.